we oftentimes can't fathom what is on the other side of the risk, and we also don't realize that the what if of failing is pretty much inevitable. If you don't do what you have in your mind, if you don't create the thing that you want to create, you're failing anyway. So in one direction, you're fucked. And then in the fear of not doing what you want to be, you're fucked. So you're fucked this way, you're fucked that way, you're fucked in fear, you're fucked not living in fear, either way, you're fucked. Fear of escaping the familiar is super uncomfortable, whether it's a job, whether it's a way of living, whether it's a habit. It's hard to escape the familiar, and it's honestly painful, and change is the hardest thing to possibly do, but change is the only thing that keeps us alive and evolving, and comfort is addiction. We're addicted to being comfortable. I know I'm addicted to being comfortable in the friends that I have around, the person that I am, the way those friends make me feel, the way this life makes me feel, and stepping out of that and going into the unknown is like the scariest thing in the world. And in the other side of the unknown, you have all these things in your mind before you make this change, before you set yourself on that goal, and you're saying, what if? Like, that's the main thing going through your mind. What if I do this and it just flops? And what if I fail? What if? But what if you don't? What if you don't fail? What if you never try? That's the thought I always have. What if I never try? What if I never try and go be who I want to be in life? I'm just going to simply live an existence that I truly don't love. And is that how I want to live my life? Do I want to live my life in regret? And when you play the tape forward and you think 10, 15, 20, 30 years, 40 years down the line, and maybe you're looking at your son, or maybe you're looking back at your life and you're saying, I wish I did that different. Do I want to say that? Do I want to be this person for forever? Do I never want to change? Do I never want to evolve? And the thing about risk, and this, us analyzing our risk, and us analyzing what if and what if I don't, and what if I do, and what if I just don't. I want to be comfortable. I want to stay in this job for forever because the paycheck's like freaking four bands a week. Like that's good. But we oftentimes can't fathom what is on the other side of the risk. And we also don't realize that the what if of failing is pretty much inevitable. If you don't do what you have in your mind, if you don't create the thing that you want to create, you're failing anyway. So in one direction, you're fucked. And then in the fear of not doing what you want to be, you're fucked. So you're fucked this way, you're fucked that way, you're fucked in fear, you're fucked not living in fear, either way, you're fucked. If you don't take the risk, you will be fucked. You will live the same existence. You will live in the loop. You will live in the matrix of struggle, because you never tried to do what was in your mind. You shoved yourself and said, yo, get out of here. Go. I don't want to see you. I don't want to be you. You pushed yourself away. And that discovery that you pushed yourself away for so long is a regret that you're going to have to live with maybe for the rest of your life. And I know that when I got sober, and I got my first 90 days and my eyes opened up and I said, oh my God, my friends aren't really my friends. These people that I thought were the closest people to me and that I cared for so much all we have in common is that we're just both losers. You know, that we both just want to run away from each other. So if I'm alone, I can maybe find better friends. If I'm alone, I can maybe evolve to be so much more. You know, and when you say, that's crazy. I was completely living a lie. Everything that I lived in was a lie. Every friend I had was a lie. Everything I told myself in which I was settling to be was a complete lie. Wow. I was living a lie. I was living as somebody I didn't even desire. That's insane. You know, and when I had this realization that I was conforming, that I was settling, that I was pushing myself away, and I hated myself because I pushed my own self away, it was a discovery that I couldn't close my eyes again. I couldn't ever be blind. I couldn't ever be walking and know that I was going to live another day being somebody that wasn't who I was supposed to be, you know? And it's so funny how we don't think we're strong enough. We don't think we're strong enough to be. We don't think we're strong enough to just be us, you know? And we think that everything around us defines us. You know, if that girl denies me, that's who I am. If I fail, that's who I am. You know, and I still think that. I still think that the views that I get on a video actually matters. But what actually matters is that I made the action to be who I want to be. That's what matters. That's who I am. I'm the guy that gets up and does what he says he's going to do. Or at the back end of that, I'm the guy that gets up and says that he's going to do stuff and never does it. You know, who do you want to be? Do you want to be the guy that sits and talks in the bar about all the stories of what he used to be in high school, what he is and how great he used to be? Or do you want to be the guy that the people are talking about in the bar? Because, you know, low-level people talk about other people. That's all they do is talk about other people. I've been in the conversations. I've been in the bars. I've been in the club. And I've been in those smoke sessions where they're just saying, yeah, man, he's doing his thing. You know, I want to be doing my thing. I want to find my thing. I want to find my purpose. I want to freaking do it. I want to go after it, you know? And we don't think we're strong enough to go after it. We don't think we're strong enough to fail. We don't think we're strong enough to be and stand on our 10 toes and not need a drink, not need a drug, not need something to make us more of something. You know, and we're almost destroying ourselves because we think that we aren't enough, you know, and we think that everybody else could do it. You know, of course everybody else makes it. I don't make it, of course, because guess what? I'm nothing. I'm this, I'm that, and it's all what you tell yourself you are. You know, and it's from the actions that you take. You know, if I never started this podcast, I would be regretting it for my whole life. And I remember sitting in a job. I had a 6-figure job, and when I was growing up, the teachers told you, you know, if you make 6 figures a year, making $100K a year, $200K a year, you're gonna have a good life. You know, you'll be able to do whatever you want, and that's like their goal of freedom. And I was like thinking in my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna go to school for 4 years to make $100K. That's like aiming so low. Like that the bar is so low for what success is. If that's success, I don't know if I want it. You know, 100K, 150K, 200K. Like, I went to 4 years of college, got drunk every night, and then woke up and studied for 100K. And then college costs $500K, and I'm going here for whatever it costs for 4 years to make $150K, and I'm quote unquote successful. And I'm going to sit in that cubicle, and I'm going to sit in that job for X and X years, 20, 30 years. And I'm going to go back home to my wife, and I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to live that cycle. And I'm going to hop on the train in the morning. I'm going to do this and I do that. And I basically lived in that cycle. You know, I was 20, 21 years old, and I was working at a tennis club, and I was making good money. I was making solid dough. I was making 200 plus K a year, you know, or I don't really know. I was making checks or whatever it was. And I was hype about it, dude. I was like, this is sick, man. Like I got racks. Like, you're crazy. What is there to tell me? You know, there's nothing to tell me. And I had that cockiness, and I had that ego, because to the world, I quote unquote made it. To my teachers that told me that was what success was, the people that told me what success was, the people in my town that defined success as that type of job title, and having X and X coming in and income every month, or X and X a year in income was success. I was like, man, I'm that, right? But I didn't feel like that, and I felt like something was off. You know, because I wasn't being who I knew I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to create videos. I knew I wanted to talk in front of a camera. I knew I had a bigger purpose. I was like, this is my purpose, to make a little money here, and that's it. You know, nah, it wasn't, and it left me empty. And I looked, and I said, luckily I got fired from the job. You know, and I say that I was lucky to have the job, but I was lucky to get fired from the job, only to realize, you know, what was I going to do? I was going to sit there for 50 years of my life and do the same exact thing every day, coach the same lessons, coach for 10 hours a day to make X and X, and just do that on repeat, and do it for 10 more years, 20 more years, 30 or more years, hope to retire one day, hope to have a 401k that's loaded with cash, and then one day I could sit on the beach and have freedom, you know. That wasn't the dream for me. You know, and I feel like I had to learn what success was. You know, I had to learn what my version of success is, what my definition was. And I'm still trying to figure out what my definition of success is. But I know when I sit in front of this camera and I talk and I edit the video and I listen back on what I was saying, and I make a reel, I make a TikTok, I make a YouTube video, and I create something that's in my mind and I put it into reality. I know I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. The smile on my face, the joy that I have, the joy I have of being something, of being what I want to be, is incredible. You know, and I'm blessed, and I'm lucky to be able to do that. And I'm blessed even more if I make money doing it, right? But ask yourself, what are you trying to live for? You know? And ask yourself, if you don't live for that thing, what will you be in the end? What will you think of yourself in the end? What will your kid think of you? Because you're going to have to go on and be a role model, and you're going to have to go tell your son or your daughter that this is what you're going to be, and you can be either anything, or you can just be this box of a thing, you know? And I don't want to throw shade at like the old generation or anything like that, but you know, their definition of success was completely different than the things that we have and the person that we can be today. So if you're put in that box, if you're put in these lines and told, you should keep trying, but you know, you got to find a real career, you got to find a real job, you got to find something that's sustainable, you know, something that, you know, but people are making $1 million, $1 billion companies every day. It's just their mind let them do it. You know, if you don't let your mind go to those places, they never can be there. In my sobriety journey, I've constantly been discovering, you know, and the gratitude that I have to be able to discover myself, be able to feel every emotion that I feel every day, being able to take a pause, being able to not drown out my anxiety, not drown out my fears, and have to face them is the best thing in the world, you know. And I still have fears. I have fears of everything, man, you know, but the spirituality of this life, the spirituality of having to have faith in something, having to believe in something that's greater than myself, having to believe in the fact that something's with me, something's guiding me, something loves me more than I love myself. Is the biggest blessing, you know, and discovering that voice that was in my head, telling me not to do that thing, telling me what was wrong and what was right was always right. You know, it was always completely right, you know. And to know that every mistake I made wasn't really a mistake, you know. In my head, I think that all this stuff happens for a reason. You know, we go through seasons where we don't love ourselves. We go through seasons of loneliness to figure out how to face with the man in the mirror, face with the woman in the mirror, face with whatever our challenges are. And that's the best blessing, you know. And the best blessing is that you're in the place that you're in right now, you know, whether that's lost, whether that's confused, whether that's hating yourself, you know. That's the best place to frickin' be, because at least the sun is gonna come up one day and the clouds are gonna disappear, you know, and you're gonna be able to see that sun and be like, yeah, I made it out of whatever I thought I wasn't gonna make it out of, you know. And everything passes, everything changes, everything evolves. That's if you let it, though, you know. And love is tough, man, and life is tough, but God doesn't give you anything that you can't handle, you know. So whatever moment that you're sitting in, whatever position that you feel like you put yourself in, or that you hate yourself for, you got to be the easiest person on yourself to forgive yourself, you know, and love yourself back to a better place, you know, and know that a better place awaits. You know, when I got sober, man, I thought I could never outlive the things that I did when I was using and doing drugs, whether it was stealing, robbing, whatever. I just thought I could never outlive it. But one day at a time, I knew, you know, if I'm good today, I'm making an amends to all those people that I wronged, or the things that I did that I shouldn't have done. I'm making if I just live one day or whatever, I'm slowly saying my sorries. And when I become and me be trying to become better is the sorry. You know, people hate you for the things that you do, and you hate yourself for the things that you do, but it can be in the past, you know, and the past doesn't define your future, man. You know, and I still have problems with forgiving myself for some things that I did, but you know, I'm able to know that was a mistake I had to make, you know. And in a way, it was all God's will. You know, it's God's will that you're at where you're at. It's God's will that you're going through what you're going through, even if you can't understand it. And I don't understand it, and I don't understand a lot of things, you know. But I'm not supposed to understand it. You're not supposed to understand your mistakes. You're not supposed to understand why He let you do this, and you went and did that, and it didn't turn out like the way you thought, you know. And this life is to make mistakes, you know. And if just because you made a mistake doesn't mean that you have to live with that mistake for the rest of your life. Doesn't mean that you have to sit in that pain for forever, because a new day is coming. Hopefully. because we're gonna die one day, you know. But until you die, try to make the best of it. Try to make the best of every mistake you made. Try to rewrite that story, you know. Not even rewrite it, just make it better in the end, because this is a movie that's playing out, you know. And it could end terribly, where you're everything that you didn't want to be, or it could end great, where those things shaped you into who you are. And that's all it is there for. The pain is there to shape you. The struggles are there to grow you. I've never seen a movie, I've never seen heard a story that didn't come from hardship. The hardship is the thing that's the blessing to get you there. You just got to believe it. You just got to believe that this isn't it. You're gonna be more than you ever can imagine to be, and you just have to let it happen.